Welcome everyone to the workshop today. It's rebooting sales strategy for 2017. What I've seen happen quite a lot recently is that everyone starts the year with great intentions, and by the time they get to February, their plans are beginning to fall apart and they're quite a long way behind where they would ideally like to be. So what are the objections for the workshop today? I want to try and make sure that you leave the workshop with some really clear ideas as to what you want to do. So first of all, I want to make sure that you can differentiate yourselves and not be seen as a commodity. Find some ideal clients, ones that are going to really respect your craft. It's important also that you understand different sales channels, and I will talk about that in more detail later on and explain those to you, so you know where your sales are coming from and really what you need to do to generate more sales from the best channels and exploit some of those maybe that you're not looking at. Certainly within a very commoditized market, it's very, very important that we build trust. So one of the things we'll be looking at here is from a sales perspective, put my teeth back in, from a sales perspective, what is it you can do to build trust quickly? And part of that is having a simple communication sequence. So that, again, I will explain in more detail, but basically it's a series of what in a marketing world we'd call marketing touches. But in sales, what we're doing is we're building that so that we are controlling that sequence. And lastly, kind of reset on the goals for 2017. There's a Google sheet that I'll be handing out, say very similar to an Excel worksheet, for you to complete, and it's got some numbers crunching in there, but it's also got some goals for you to fill in for yourself so that you can really set out what you're going to do within each channel to build your sales over the course of the year. So for those of you who don't know me, my name's Nick West. I've been in consulting now for, it says there 30 years, but actually it's 31 this year. That's quite a frightening thought. I work with clients across North America and into Europe as well. And I'm very lucky to say that I have a number of international award-winning design clients that have worked with me for some time. As well as working as a consultant, I have other businesses as well. So I'm an entrepreneur in my own right. So I understand where you guys are coming from with running your own business as well. The commoditized market. More and more you hear people talking about design being treated as a commodity, and so much of that is down to these guys. You can see their logos up there. This is a very, very small sample of a huge number of companies that really are running software as a service that are eroding the design market from the professional design firm's perspective. Whether it is companies like Fiverr, which are really competing on price by outsourcing work overseas, ditto 99 Designs, or whether they are genuine software as a service companies like Wix that will charge you on a monthly basis for what you do, Weebly, Canva, again, not so much software as a service, but you buy into particular pieces of design work, and you can call on their portfolio, if you like, to add work in there. And then more established ones like Vistaprint that have really pushed into reducing the price and going for the high volume market. They've really eroded the design market as a whole. So it's really important that you understand how to compete against these really low price, high volume software as a service competitors, and we're going to have a look at that. So firstly, let's have a look at the buyers. Who's actually out there buying the software as a service, the cheap design? Well, first and foremost, it's going to be those who are looking for cheap design. They're very price conscious, and can't knock it. We all are price conscious from time to time. But one of the key things that you'll find is that these buyers, they have no personal loyalty. They're, if you like, the Walmart shopper. They will go for the cheapest option. It doesn't really matter where it is. Is it Walmart? Is it one of the other big box stores? It's not of great concern for them. What they're looking for is getting a deal, getting the best deal that they possibly can. They also have a fairly limited perspective on design. They know what they like, but they don't necessarily know what is going to work best for their potential customers, which to some extent it can be an advantage for us. They're also looking for ease of purchase. How quickly can they do this? And if you think about a lot of the online services, you don't even have to talk to somebody. They're avoiding that one-on-one communication. And in doing so, they're missing out on huge opportunities to get advice. But they're looking for ease of purchase, and they're looking for fast delivery, really that instant gratification. Gone are the days when somebody would go to their graphic designer and say, hey, I need 30 photos for social media. Can you put text on them? Can you format them? Can you make them into great memes? No, these days they'll go to someone like Canva, Picasso, and they'll be able to do that really quickly, and in many cases at zero cost as well. So those are some of the kind of, if you like, the profile of the buyers of commodity-based design. So how can you compete with that? So I want to sort of take a step back, and if you think of commodity sellers, think of the big box stores. And I want you to think of yourself as design firms as the specialist local retailers. So what is it the big box stores offer, and what is it that we can offer that's going to compete with that? Big box stores, high volume. And because of that high volume, they can charge significantly lower prices. But it's very much what you see is what you get. There's a very limited opportunity to make customization in there. What customization is available is very much menu driven, and it's not necessarily going to actually be what the client needs. It may be what the client wants. And that's where the issue comes in. When you get buyer defined design, they get stuff they think is going to work because it looks pretty, not because it's actually going to have an impact on persuading their clients to buy from them. And I'm talking very much here in a business to business context rather than business to consumer. It's all very much the buyer's preference. It's not necessarily what they need. So I talked briefly about that. What is it that influences the eventual end user? They tend to very much think about what it is that influences them. And a classic case here is if you think about people who renovate houses and flip them to sell them on. If they use their own personal taste in decorating, then it takes significantly longer to sell, or they have to sell at a lower price. Because the buyers, in this case, the redesigners' personal preferences aren't actually what the end user needs or wants. And one of the other things that you'll find about these services is that there's a high degree of buyer remorse. The number of people that go from using something like Weebly or Wix, Squarespace, that then come to web developers and say, I cannot believe that I did that. I spent so much time. And it's time that's the essence here. Cost is relatively low. Monthly cost, it adds up over the years. But the biggest upfront cost for these individuals is time. They can't believe how much time they've wasted to not get the results they need. So buyer remorse is something that you should be thinking about, because that is something that you can help them avoid. So as a design firm, what is it that you can do that will overcome the perceived advantages that the big box stores have? Well, it's really important that you use your skill, your experience, to guide the buyer to the right decision for what they want it to do. And sometimes that involves a lot of questioning. There's very much a consultative approach that you have to take to selling to overcome that resistance to price. And this is where you're demonstrating the value that you bring rather than price. So people are prepared to pay more for something that delivers higher value. So you need to be able to demonstrate that. excuse me, part of that is having testimonials and references from happy clients who've had great results from you. So don't be afraid to use those. It's important, obviously, that you're identifying the end user and not being led by the buyer preferences, because that's what the big box stores, the commodity sellers, will be able to do. You offer high customization and flexibility. Probably the biggest thing that you bring is the specialist skills that you have. Not to mention that, but you also have industry knowledge. You know what makes a difference in terms of what it is that the buyer is looking for. And last really on this one is that you have demonstrated through your existing customer base what you're capable of doing, and that you have loyalty. You have customers that stay with you because what you do works. It gives them a return on investment. So these are the things that you need to be thinking about when people come in and say, oh, I can get it more cheaply elsewhere. Yes, you can get it more cheaply, but is it going to really be A, what you need, B, is it going to derive value for you as the buyer, and is it going to do what your end users need it to do? In other words, persuade them to buy from you, in most cases in a business-to-business environment. So this all sounds well and good, but how do you go about identifying potentially good clients? And it's one thing, I'm sure that many of you talk to your clients about having a good customer profile and a customer avatar, and designing to that avatar, what's the age range, what's the gender, what's the income. And it's amazing how many of us don't actually have a really good avatar for ourselves. So what I want to do is quickly run through some ways in which you can identify good potential clients versus poor potential clients. Okay, so identifying some good clients. First of all, use your existing customers as a guide, because they're the ones that you know the best. Firstly, it's important when you're looking in a business-to-business environment to understand where that business sits. What's the demographics of that business? Is it a startup? Are they going through that sort of second generation change? They've been in business for maybe 18 months to 3 years. They have grown. They now have half decent cash flow, and they can afford to get more in the way of marketing materials because they're setting up for that first phase of growth and consolidated growth. What's the market that they're in? Who are their end customers? What kind of margins can they get from those clients? What's the strategy? Are they looking to grow locally? Are they looking to acquire other businesses? Are they looking to grow geographically? So you need to understand these things because these will help you really identify which are your best clients. You also need to understand that within the business there's a buyer or group of buyers, and what's the demographic of those individuals, because you also need to appeal to them in the way you communicate with them, the way you talk to them. So taking a step back, let's look at the business and then look at the people within the business. The next thing we need to think about is, especially when it comes to the buyer, psychographics. And psychographics are the things that motivate them. And understanding an individual's motivation can make a huge difference to the way in which you sell to them and you talk to them about sales. A fairly typical example would be if you're dealing with a medium-sized company and you're talking to the VP of marketing about acquiring, buying a new website, then one of the things they're going to be concerned about is that they need to be making the right decision, because the wrong decision is going to be very costly to them in their career. It may be the end of their career with that particular company if they make a bad decision. So you need to be reassuring them that what they're buying is the right thing, versus, let's say, the owner of a business. And the owner of a business is going to be basically saying to themselves, you want me to spend $40,000 on a website. That $40,000 comes out of my pocket. You're going to have to convince me that there is a really good return on that investment. So think about the things that motivate people. And I've got a few things for you to look at in terms of how to help profile them. What is it? Well, what are their aspirations? What's their sense of style like? And this is really important within the design field. What are their likes and their interests? Being able to find common ground with someone works enormously well. You'd be amazed. I love sailing. I won't hide the fact. You'd be amazed by the number of people that I have been able to work with because we have that common interest in sailing. We talk about boats. Do we talk about work? Well, we kind of work out we like sailing, and that for most people is good enough. So finding out the likes and interests of your potential buyers really, really helps, making sure that they're aligned with yours. What are their personal goals? So, talked about the VP of marketing versus the owner. Understanding where they want to go and how the decisions they're going to take are going to impact on those personal goals. Think about their dress sense. It sounds really strange in many ways, but how somebody dresses says a lot about their interest in design, their interest in how things look. Timekeeping is really important. What's their attitude towards time? It makes a big difference when it comes to deliverables. When you're expecting a client to deliver copy, graphics to you, whatever it may be, if they're not good at timekeeping, then it's unlikely that they will be good at delivering that material to you when you need it. That's important. What kind of car do they drive? Are they ostentatious? Are they economical? Are they conservative? Again, useful things to know. And the type of watch they have. It sounds really, again, it sounds kind of strange, but when you look at somebody's watch, it will tell you a lot about them. Is it an incredibly expensive, ostentatious piece of jewelry rather than a watch? Is it a very functional watch? Or is it just kind of cheap and cheerful? Those kind of things will help you understand what your buyer is actually like, what your best buyers are like. So what I have is a worksheet for you. So I'm just going to switch applications a moment. So hold on a second. I will bring up what I have called a good client worksheet. So you should be able to see a worksheet there. That's what I call the good client worksheet. And I've got just 3 examples in there. If you can't see it for any reason, just fire off a note in the chat section if you can't see it, but you should be able to. Yeah, you should be able to see that. So the idea behind the good client worksheet is that you put in the business name, the type of business, and it's really important you understand the industry that particular client is in. And then on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 actually being high or a positive yes and 4 being a low or no, answer these questions and then it will give you a total score. We'll look at the real estate developer as the first example here. So hopefully you can all see the real estate developer here. So that's this guy, or girl for that matter. How flexible are they on price? So if they're not particularly flexible on price, then they get the higher score. So in this case, a 3 or 4. Do they view design as important? Well, in this case, yes, reasonably important. Return on investment is very important to them. They're good about time. They're time conscious. Do they view you as a pixel for hire? And I've used pixel rather than pen or pencil or whatever these days, because most work is done on a Mac of some shape, form or size. Apologies there for those of you using PCs still. The idea behind the pixel for hire is they are basically trying to tell you what it is that they want, and you don't want to work with people that are controlling what you do. So you want to work here with people that give you a much better score. So in this case, a 1 or a 2. Do they accept advice? really important that you be seen in a consultative role, not just in the pixel for hire kind of role. And then we look at their technical needs. How complex is what they are doing? And the more complex it is, the better from your perspective, because the more complex it is, the less likely they are going to be able to find a commodity seller that is going to be able to make it work for them. And I've gone through and I've just filled out 3 examples here: a real estate developer, an engineer, and an architect, giving the different scores. So what we would do with this, and I'm going to go back to the PowerPoint presentation in a moment, so hold on one second. Nope, wrong one. So what we would do here in terms of using the worksheet, and I'll go back, so do this for your top 15 to 20 customers by revenue, and base this very much on your experience that you have with them. Then take these total scores, and what you're looking for is the higher the score, the worse the potential customer is. The lower the score, the better the type of customer they will effectively be. And then what you're going to do is take the top 3 that you get from this exercise and create a customer profile or an avatar based firstly on your knowledge of these individuals, because you've worked with them, but also don't be afraid to go into their social media profiles. Have a look at their LinkedIn profile, have a look at their Facebook profile, and build the profile, build the avatar, because these are going to be the kinds of clients you're going to be wanting to go out and find, to look for. I want to talk to you about sales channels and really how sales channels work and the ideas behind them. The main thing is understanding where your clients come from, which are the best areas that you get your clients from. And just as importantly, are there any areas that you're not utilizing where you should be going out and trying to get new clients? And this is something that I see frequently, that firms will stick with 1 or 2 sales channels that they have reasonably good success in, but they're somewhat afraid of going out and trying some of the new channels, partly because they don't know what they're supposed to be doing or how it works, and partly because time is limited and you don't want to spend time on new activities that you aren't sure are going to bring you any kind of results. So where do your sales come from? First of all, your existing clients. It's known as account-based selling. So you're really looking to use those existing clients, repeat business, absolute bread and butter, and so many firms don't utilize this to the full extent. They don't have an account sales strategy for getting more business and cross-selling. Advertising, fairly straightforward. Networking and referral marketing. Some people are really good about going to business networking events, they're a member of the Chamber of Commerce or Business Network International, a whole range of different business networking groups. A lot of firms occasionally will ask for a referral, but they don't have what I would describe as a referral marketing strategy. They don't have a process. They're not really, if you like, they're not farming their existing clients who love them for referrals. So that's something that almost everyone can work on. Outbound or interruptive sales has gone out of popularity really quite dramatically with the advent of what Seth Godin started off calling permission marketing and has now become inbound marketing. Outbound marketing, possibly the most underused and possibly the one that's going to give you the best return if you do it well. Inbound marketing, I think pretty much everyone's familiar with the concept of inbound marketing. They have a blog, they put something out once every 2-3 weeks, 2-3 months, looking at a lot of people's sites, it seems like once or twice a year maybe. Social media, everyone feels they have to be on social media and they're actively in there posting. But what's it actually doing for them? Unless you're tracking this, you don't really know. And lastly, and probably the most effective one within inbound, is generating that email list that you use through blogging and social media, and using that list to actively promote what you do. It can be very, very effective. And the last one, and again, this is one that a lot of firms don't even try, a lot of individuals don't even look at, and it's PR, speaking events and sponsorship. There are other forms of PR as well, getting into magazines and newspapers and things like that. But speaking events, there was a survey carried out, it was about 2 years ago, by, I think it was Marketo, who's one of the big marketing firms, deals primarily with large organizations. And they were looking at what was the most effective form of bringing in new business. And it was public speaking. And I have to say, I was really surprised by that. But public speaking, whether you're talking at a Chamber of Commerce event, whether you're talking to the local Rotary, has an enormous impact in terms of the return for the time and money that you put into it. And a simple example there, if you're kind of wondering about that, if you think about an organization like the Rotary, which is comprised of generally older members of the business community, if you're a web developer and you go in there and you talk about responsive web design, why it's important to have a responsive website, I could pretty much guarantee you will end up with 4 or 5 business owners coming to you at the end of that speech and saying, hey, this responsive thing, tell me more. I want to find out more about it. Should I be doing it for my business because I haven't updated my website in 5 years? What should I do? Can be a really, really productive thing to be doing. So here are different channels that you can be using. And it's important that you know which channels are working for you. So it's important to go back and track your actual sales. We often look at what the kinds of work we do, but knowing where that work comes from is really important. So know which channels work for you. Know the conversion rates by different channels because they will be different. Speaking engagements, as I said, has a fantastic conversion rate because people get to know you, they get to see you, they get to form a really strong impression of you, and they get to hear you in an expert position. So your conversion rate from public speaking is going to be huge. Your conversion rate from email marketing, for example, might be significantly lower, but if you have an email list of 500, 1,000, 2,000 people, you don't need a very high conversion rate to still bring in business. I would always recommend focus on your most successful channels that are successful with your ideal customer avatar. And once you've gone through the exercise of working out who your ideal customers are, you might find that your most successful sales channels, in terms of the volume they bring in, don't actually bring in ideal customers. And this is where you can apply Pareto's principle, the 80-20 idea. 20% of your clients bring in 80% of your revenue. So it may be that there's a lot of income coming in from the bottom 80%, but the profitability on those, because they are looking for a deal, you have to spend a lot of time working with them because they're continually wanting revisions, they're wanting changes made, they're never particularly happy because they're using their personal preferences rather than relying on your skill. So really look at where you are successful with your ideal customer avatar. Having said that, it's important that you mix it up because if you are just sticking with 1 or 2 of the sales channels, which you're having reasonable success with, it's important to go out and try the other channels, but try them consistently. Don't try them for a week and go, went to the Chamber of Commerce, that was useless. For anyone who's been to a Chamber of Commerce meeting, you spend about 40% of it fending off life insurance salespeople and realtors. But the other 60%, if you're targeted and you know how to network, can be very, very valuable. So don't reject it because you have one bad experience. Likewise with interruptive. You pick up the phone, you get somebody in a bad mood, they're grumpy, and you're like, whoa, I'm not going to do that again. Most people, if you do it effectively, will actually treat you very respectfully in a business-to-business environment because they are also selling. So remember that. It's not like business to consumer. You ring people up at home, they're not going to be too happy to speak to you. But in a business-to-business environment, most people are very respectful of what it is you're attempting to do. So really important that you mix it up a bit there. I talked about trust and why trust is important when looking at how to differentiate yourself from commodity sellers of design as opposed to running your own firm. And I want to tell you about the building blocks of trust, of which consultants over the years and academics have nailed it, hammered it down to 5 building blocks of trust. And these are ones that you should really work on. Some of them you will have already, but if you don't, I've got some ideas for you. The first one is expertise. It should be a given that if you run your own firm, you are an expert in what you do, whether that is web development, design, programming, or graphic design, branding. You should have that knowledge, but if you don't, then you should be working on improving those skills, improving that knowledge. But you need to demonstrate this to your clients or potential clients, and I will talk about how we can do that in a moment. Dependability and reliability. If you think of, and I'm going to be very generalist here. You think about most people in the construction industry. You ask a painting company to come around and give you a quote to repaint the interior of your house. Chances are they're not going to turn up when they say they're going to turn up. They're going to give some vague excuse as to why they came in the afternoon rather than the morning. It sucks. You don't like it, neither does your potential client. So dependability is a key building block of trust. Customer orientation, and that's really that it's about the customer. It's about you when you're talking to someone. It's not about me. I'm not here to tell you how wonderful I am. I've got testimonials to do that. I've got referrals to tell you how wonderful I am because you've already used that first building block of trust, expertise, and you have other people shouting your praises, writing you testimonials. Look at the way in which social proof has become so important. People look at Google Maps and they see the business and they see it's got 2 stars and they go, oh, yeah, I'm not interested in working with them because there are 2 others with 4.5 or 5 stars. It's all about the customer. Very little of it is about you. It's good to be likable when trying to sell to people. People buy from people they like and they trust. And that is social quotient. And if you have any concerns about whether you're likable or not, firstly, don't ask your mum because your mum will say, yes, you are. But what I would recommend is there's a great book called, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. It's called Social Quotient, so the Social Quotient, and it's by a guy called Carl Albrecht. And it's really interesting read. And he has little quizzes at the end of each chapter. And as you go through it, it will help you determine your likability. Are you argumentative? Do you like to always be right? Number of deals can be lost over minor little disagreements about whether something is right or wrong. So understanding your social quotient and what you can do to appear more likable and genuinely be more likable, if that is an issue for you, Carl Albrecht's book, really, really good read. Strongly recommend it. And lastly, your selling style. And here, again, going back to networking events at the Chamber of Commerce, you get cornered by the realtor, you get cornered by the life insurance person. They're trying to sell. Can we arrange a meeting? Can we sell your house? Can we come and do a valuation? You just want to get out of the room. You just don't want to spend time with them. And it's the same if you are always trying to close the deal. So much better to be seen as an advisor, come in from a consultative perspective. What can you do? What questions should you be asking that are going to get the client thinking? Just little things like, well, where do you see your business in a year's time? How do you feel that this brochure is going to impact your business? Why is it important for you to have e-commerce? Things like that. Asking good questions. Firstly, it helps demonstrate expertise, but it also gets the client thinking about their business, and your selling style moves from let's close this deal, sign on the dotted line, to maybe we're not absolutely the best people. We probably are, but we want to make sure that you've thought it through. So those are the 5 different building blocks of trust. And what I want you to think about is how can we use those building blocks of trust in different ways to increase our likelihood of making a sale. Now, I have a communication sequence that I'm going to show you next. And a communication sequence is, in marketing terms, it's a series of touches that you or your business has with a potential client. In this case, what we're doing, because we're selling and not marketing, it's a one-to-one experience versus one-to-many, is that we are directing that communication sequence and we have control over it. And it looks something like this. Oh, sorry, no, it doesn't. Completely forgot this one. Benefits of trust. Why is it important to build trust? First of all, so you're not viewed as a commodity. Research showed that people are more likely to switch from an incumbent firm to you if you can demonstrate those building blocks of trust. They're also more likely to give recommendations and referrals. So here we have a great way of boosting that channel for network and referral marketing. Because you are trustworthy, your clients are more happy to give those referrals. They're also, funnily enough, research again has showed, much more open to upselling and cross-selling. So this is internal sales to existing customers because they know you, they like you, they trust you. And lastly, they're also more likely to make a major repurchase from you. So again, this is part of account sales. But if you are a graphic designer and you're creating brochures for your client, they're much more likely to come back to you year on year rather than maybe try and make the 2016 brochure eke out into mid-2017. So building blocks of trust, some of the significant benefits from a sales perspective as well as from overcoming the commodity issue. Back to communication sequences. Got them in the right order this time. Sorry about that. What I've created here is a simple sequence, a relatively simple sequence that looks at the communications you would make from interruptive selling. So this is where you are targeting very specific clients, and there's a good reason you want to do that. And a lot of that comes down to the fact that you want to get your ideal customers. So why wait for them to come to you when you've identified them already? So we'd start off with a letter, for example. So we start off with a letter, and the aim of that letter is really, it's just to let people know that you exist. And you have in there, I will call you in the next 5 days, the next 7 days. What you're demonstrating there is that it's a collaborative sales process because you're not trying to sell them anything in that letter. You're just introducing, hey, can we talk? When it comes to the phone call, the follow-up phone call, which you make within those 5 or 7 days, as promised, you're asking very specifically, can I have 2 minutes of your time? You're being respectful of their time, so you're putting them first. So your sales orientation is geared very much towards them. Do not sell anything. And all you're really doing is getting permission to send them a relevant case study that you've got. because you want to demonstrate expertise and you want to demonstrate that somebody else has really benefited from working with you, someone like them. So you've already hit dependability and sales orientation. Now, if you get their voicemail, one of the things I would strongly recommend is when you leave the message, say, is it all right? I'm going to send you a case study to this email address, and I will call you at Tuesday at 10 o'clock. Be very specific with the time, be very specific with the date. What you will then do is you will call them at that time on that day, even if they're not there, even if they can't take that phone call and you get the voicemail again, because what you've done now is you have demonstrated dependability. I will do what I say I'm going to do when I'm going to do it. And the weird thing about that is that often you get a return phone call saying, sorry, I couldn't take that call. I knew you were going to call, but I was in a meeting. I was out of the office. Bang. They've now come to you rather than you having to go to them for that follow-up phone call. Again, don't sell anything. Third touch, in this case, it's just an email. You're just sending out a case study. You're sending out what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. And you're now demonstrating expertise as well, because they've got a case study about another business that you've worked with that's had great success. Then you hit the phone again. Did they get the case study? Can we book a time to talk? Just short phone call, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And what you're looking for here is to understand more about their business. Again, you're not trying to sell to them. You want to know more about whether you are in a position to help them if they need your help. So you're taking a collaborative sales approach, but you're also endeavoring to be as likable as possible. So you're really hitting these building blocks of trust with every single touch along the way. And lastly, and this is a relatively short sequence, we're maybe hitting the phone again. And within this discovery call, not too long, 15 to 20 minutes, maybe it will be longer if you get permission. What you're looking for is to start building that personal relationship. So you will have done your research. You'll have looked at their LinkedIn profile, their Facebook profile. You're a cyber stalker when it comes to this kind of activity. You know who you're talking to. You know their interest. Do you have anything in common? Really, really important. You can pull out some of these things and use them in conversation, but in a non-stalkerish kind of way. So you're starting to build that personal relationship, and what you're looking for is you're not looking to sell to them, you're looking for a one-on-one meeting. Maybe you make that over a coffee, maybe lunch if it's appropriate. Never at this point would it be dinner. You're on the way now to building that relationship, and at this point you have your one-to-one meeting lined up. You're falling now into your more regular sales routines that you have, but you've used this interruptive selling process where you've created a communication sequence step by step to build trust. Now when you talk to that prospective client, they are more likely to be open to doing business with you. Not necessarily, more likely. You've still got to talk about price, delivery times, and ultimately whether you have the right decision maker, or is it going to go to a team of people to decide? Does it go up to the CFO, the CEO who makes the decision? But you are a long way down the road towards getting new good business through maybe a slightly non-traditional sales approach. Okay. So that's communication sequences. So what I would suggest, and the slides are going to be made available at the end of this, what I would get you to do is think about how you talk to prospective clients. What do you actually say to them? What do you send them? What materials, what marketing materials do you have that are going to help build those building blocks of trust, that are going to demonstrate those? And maybe go back through your portfolio of marketing material and review it. What does this do? Am I selling or am I demonstrating something? Am I giving them solid information that's going to help me, or am I being too pushy? Am I avoiding phone calls because I'm scared about what I should say? And yeah, the first 10, 15, 20 phone calls, cold calls, I mean, and cold is a relative term because you have in theory warmed them up either with a letter, but that letter could be an email. It could be a connection through social media. Maybe you connected with them on LinkedIn. Maybe you know them through, or you met them briefly at a networking event. You're not aiming to do a completely cold call. You're aiming to do a slightly warm one. Think about what you're doing, your sales channels, which ones you're using, and is there an opportunity to use something like this to go out and target your ideal clients rather than having to wait for them to come to you through what in many cases is a somewhat hit and miss inbound marketing approach? Food for thought. And I'm very much open to questions or comments or thoughts on that when we get to the Q&A at the end of this. Now, the last thing I want to talk to you about, of major substance, is an annual sales plan. And this really is where it comes to the reboot for 2017. If you didn't have a sales plan at the beginning of January, this is your opportunity to put one into place. To be honest, you can do an annual sales plan any day of the year. We just at a convention tend to think of January the 1st as the start of the year, but you can do one for 12 months at any point, and it really doesn't matter when you start. So I'm calling this an annual sales plan rather than sales plan for 2017. And again, I'm going to go over to a Google Sheet, which again I will also make available to you. Okay, you should at this point see the annual sales plan, and I'll talk you through how this works, the ideas behind it. So what we're looking to do here is set out what it is we would like to see as our sales over the next 12 months. Now, I've partially completed this based on some historical information. What were the previous 12 months actual sales? In this case, it's 241,000. Random numbers I have plucked from thin air. What do we want our goal number to be? And in this case, I'm going to pick a random number of 290,000. Don't know why I picked 290,000. I could have picked a slightly different number and given me a 50,000 increase rather than 49,000, but it is what it is. We have a $49,000 increase. Where is that increase going to go? So what additional activities do I need to do to bring in even more money than I did last year? And what you can do here is look, I've itemized out the different sales channels, and we can choose where this is going to come from. Well, I'm feeling confident because I now know some building blocks of trust, and I'm going to go back to my existing clients and I'm going to sell them 15% more this year. Now, I'm not so confident about this whole interruptive sales process. I think that might be a bit scary. So I'm just going to say I'm going to go for 5%. Inbound marketing, I love inbound marketing. I love spending hours and hours writing relevant blogs and spending time on social media. So I believe I'm actually going to get 40% of my additional revenue from inbound marketing. Advertising, yeah, I'm willing to spend a little bit more. I think I can probably get another 15% through additional advertising. And lastly, I'm going to go out and ask clients for referrals, and I'm going to do some really solid network marketing this year. I'm going to join the Chamber of Commerce. I'm going to join a business networking group. So I think I can get 25% of that increased revenue from networking. So I look at that now, and that all seems very reasonable. I've identified what I'm going to do, where it's going to come from. But then when I go back and look at where my revenue in the last 12 months has actually come from, well, I can see that 160,000 has come from existing clients. But in terms of new business that I generated this year, not a great deal came from picking up the phone, sending out emails. A very small quantity actually came from inbound marketing that I could identify as coming from inbound marketing. Big chunk came from advertising, and a reasonable amount came from networking, but not necessarily as much as I thought. So maybe what I need to do is go back and revise some of these numbers. Just play with these. Humor me. Go through it and think, what do I actually need to do? So maybe 40% of my increased revenue isn't going to come from inbound. Maybe I'm going to say 25% is going to come from there. And I'm going to bump my interruptive. I think I can probably get 20% there as well. So I'm playing with these numbers to look at where that increased business is potentially going to come from. So as I say, this will be shared and be made available for you. So you can take this and you can play with it. But the most important part of it is having determined what percentage of your increase or how much increase is going to come from these different sales channels. Now, what are you actually going to commit to do within those sales channels? So existing clients, account-based selling, you need to not necessarily wine and dine, but you need to be making regular phone calls to make sure that everything's okay, that they're happy, maybe take them for lunch or coffee every now and again. Hey, I'm in the area. Do you fancy meeting up for a coffee? Talk about their business. Get to know the individuals who are decision makers better so that you can sell more to them. I'm going to do some interruptive sales. So what are you going to commit to? How many phone calls, letters, emails each day, each week are you going to commit to doing? And I've got some ideas as to how you can really, really kickstart your sales very, very quickly using this. And I'll share those with you in a moment. Inbound marketing, what am I going to commit to? In terms of content creation, how many blogs am I going to do per month? What specific social media activity am I going to do day in, day out, week in, week out? What systems am I going to use? Am I going to use something like Hootsuite? Am I going to use something like Edgar? Or Buffer? If you're not familiar with those, they are social media management tools that allow you to prepare weeks worth of or months worth of posts in advance, and then they'll schedule them and post them accordingly. Advertising, what am I going to do? Am I going to be doing more Facebook advertising? Am I going to do more AdWords? Am I going to do banner ads in specific trade websites or publications? Because I now know where my avatar is. So what specifically am I going to do? Likewise, networking. How many events am I going to each week? How am I going to educate my existing clients to give me good referrals? Well, here's a great opportunity. Talk to your existing clients, take them out for lunch and say, hey, I am looking to grow my business and I am looking for more clients like you. I'm looking for more clients in this sector. Do you know of anyone that you would be willing to refer me to? I would love it if you could give me 3 names, phone numbers, email addresses. That would be fantastic. It's amazing the number of times when you ask a very specific question, you get very specific answers, and they're positive. And lastly, are there any other sales channels that maybe you want to try? PR, do you want to try speaking at the Chamber of Commerce, speaking at industry events, getting involved with sponsorship for local charities, things like that, that are going to raise your profile and bring people to you? So an opportunity to fill this out. So this will be made available to you, and I would strongly recommend when you have completed it, print it out so that you have it, in particular the things that you are going to commit to. And lastly on this one, I think it's very important to have a wish list of clients that you would like to work with. I always think top 10 is ideal. It's quite useful to have maybe 15 or 20 that you've got in mind, because companies will drop off this top 10 list. You may do a little bit of research and discover, I was going to try and sell them a new website, but I see they only got one 3 months ago. They're not really going to be interested in that. Doesn't mean that they drop off the face of the earth. It means that they fall into a business development cycle, and maybe you can sell them SEO, SEM. Is there anything in the digital marketing field relating to that website that you can help them with that maybe they're not getting at the moment? So have this wish list, and these are the clients or potential clients that you are going to use interruptive sales with, because you're not going to wait for them to come to you. You are going to go to them, and some of them will say no, some of them will say maybe, and some of them will say yes. And that's how you start to build a really strong portfolio of ideal clients. When an ideal client says yes, it gives you the opportunity to lose a less than ideal client from the bottom part of your portfolio. So week on week, month on month, year on year, your portfolio is increasing and improving in quality. And one of the things with improving in quality means that they really do value they really do value what you do for them. They are willing to pay for good quality design, and that's really important. And because they like you and they love you, hopefully, they're going to offer referrals, testimonials, marketing material, case studies. They become a mine of sales and marketing material, as well as being highly profitable and giving you, ideally, the lifestyle that you're looking for. So really important, I think, to have that top 10 list. Now I'm just going to go back over to the presentation again. So annual sales plan, as I say, that will be available for you. So 3 steps that I would say that or steps you have to take to increase your sales, and the most important one to me is consistency and knowing what it is that you are really aiming to do each day, each week, having a checklist and sticking to that list of things you are willing to commit to. Having a sales process so you know what it is that you're looking to do. You are able to tick off from those checklists what that communication sequence is, where you are in it, how it's working, that you have basic scripts or even checklists for those phone calls that you can follow so that you know you've covered every point in them. Have those targets written out, the specific activities, and track your results. It's a great thing. If you have a whiteboard in your office, keep that sales pipeline as it grows written on your whiteboard. The reason I love that is that every time you come into your office and you look at it, you can see that your sales pipeline is growing, that your sales activity is generating opportunity. And those opportunities will convert. Not all of them. That very much depends on your ability to convert based on proposals you're writing, the kind of clients you're choosing. But the opportunities when you have a big sales pipeline are significantly greater than when you have a small sales pipeline. So tracking your results, being held accountable. If you have somebody that you can share this with, share your goals with, who will keep you accountable. Hey, did you do your 10 social media posts this week? Whether it's a partner in the business, spouse, mentorship, whether you do a kind of a reciprocal arrangement with a friend of yours who runs their own business. Really, really good to have that accountability. And also consequences and rewards. You know, if you do your sales calls for the week, if you do your social media posts for the week, have a reward at the end of that week. Hey, my reward for doing all my social media this week is I go to the movies. Fantastic. My consequence of not doing all my social media posts is I don't go to the movies this week. Little consequences, little rewards. They don't need to be big ones. can make a difference to your personal motivation as well. And practice, practice, practice. No one is good at cold calling when they first try it, or slightly warm calling. It does take practice. The first 5 calls will probably be a disaster. They might not be, but the next 5 will be better than the first 5, and the next 10 will be better than the first 10. And so it goes. The more you practice, the better you get. I think it was Jack Nicklaus, the golfer, when asked whether he felt that he was lucky, he said, "Yep, the more I practice, the luckier I get." And that's what sales comes down to as well. Practice, do it, and you will get lucky, in inverted commas. Okay. And lastly, sound like a consultant. We're overcoming a lot of the barriers that are placed by commodity-based software as a service and software sites. So you need to be consultative. You need to be asking questions and not just giving straight solutions. Okay. Want to talk about activity-based sales and why activity rather than financial targets is often a better way of approaching sales activity. Firstly, it builds habits. Talked about having a number of phone calls or social media posts, daily, weekly, monthly. Build these into your routine. Start of the day, instead of opening up your email, pick up the phone, but you have a list from the night before. I'm going to call these 6 people. Doesn't matter if I get their voicemail. That's fine. I'm going to call these 6, or I'm going to connect with these 2 on social media and send them a message. Not just connect, but you've got to send them a message. Then I'm going to email these other 2 that I've been in touch with, and I'm going to call these other 2. 6 specific things that you do. I call them Super 6, isn't it? It's 6 specific activities each day that you undertake to generate new leads. And I mentioned them just then. Is it 6 letters? Is it 6 emails? Is it 6 phone calls? Is it a combination of those? Is it a direct message on Twitter? Is it a message on LinkedIn? I've even had and used Snapchat for connecting like this. And it's quite cool. You can just send a little video message. Those are really, really neat. Likewise, I have received them on Twitter, little video messages. 35, 40 seconds. Hey, great to connect with you. Bang. Brilliant, brilliant sales tool if you use it effectively. So 6 things, what can you do every day that are going to build the number of people that you talk to about your business? So those are some of the ideas there. Weekly, what are you going to do? One-on-one, are you going to meet for coffee with one person, 2 people, 3 people each week? Go to networking events. Really think out what it is that your week looks like and schedule these things in. Don't wait for them to happen later because you're busy on a particular client project. Make sure you put these in and you treat them as you would a meeting with a client. They are that important. So schedule them in, whether it's daily, weekly, monthly. Make time and make a successful sales habit, and that will really, really reset where you are. Okay. Quickly to go back to the top 10 targets, this is the last thing on the annual worksheet. From that list, make sure you research, because a lot of them will fall out of that list or may not be appropriate in terms of size when you qualify them. Are you a good match with them? And if you're wondering how to qualify, I have a couple of blog posts at least on qualifying clients, but you can also talk to me or fire questions to me at the Q&A afterwards. Craft a good communication sequence specific to each company. Look for trigger events. I ran a workshop, I think probably last year, talking about selling to bigger organizations, and a lot of that was around identifying particular trigger events that made it worthwhile for you to communicate with those businesses. Trigger events are things like they buy or sell another business. There is a change within the marketing department, new VP of marketing, new head of marketing, new director, new CEO. They announce through a press release that they are expanding into a new marketplace. If you think when Target decided to expand into Canada, there was a huge amount of PR about that. When they left Canada, on the other hand, there was a significantly smaller press release about that. So you're looking for particular trigger events. And again, good old Google is that. It is great for this because you can put in Google alerts, particular companies, and bang, you get the email that notifies you that they've appeared in Google. There's new news about them. There's something new about them. And I would also strongly suggest you do that with your existing clients so you don't miss the change of VP of marketing, because now you have somebody new to build a relationship with. So use Google alerts for trigger events. And again, very important that you're taking action here. And look at the feedback, look at the success that you're having, and change that top 10 up. If one company drops off, put another one in. So that is why I think it's really important to have a top 10 target. And once you've done that, go back and repeat. Once you've been through those top 10, they'll either now be customers, they will have moved into your business development process because they're not ready to buy yet, or they're not interested in working with you. That's fine. You now go back and repeat and have a new top 10, a new top 10, until you keep on moving the quality of your portfolio up and you start making more money. So that's the end of the main part of the workshop. So there is a lot of information that I will be sharing with you. Just wanted to quickly talk to you about my services and how I work with people. The main aim with business coaching is that we help you achieve the potential that you have within yourself and within your business. We act as guides. We've been there before with a lot of different businesses, in many cases different industries, and have interesting and diverse perspectives. We have good resources. I specialize in working with the design sector. That means that I have not just my clients, but I work with a number of people, some of whom may be a very good fit for you to work with too, to help build your firm. Providing accountability. You say you're going to do 6 phone calls a day, I'm going to keep you to it. And lastly, and this one is very important for small business owners, having somebody who's impartial and will give you honest feedback about your business, about your thoughts, about your plans. If you ask family members, you tend to get, oh, isn't that wonderful, dear? You know, I think that sounds fantastic. Or you get the, oh, that sounds way too risky. It's important that it's impartial, it's considered and well thought out in terms of the advice that you can be getting. Cost of coaching is a monthly retainer of $1,250. However, I'm very cognizant of the fact that you have invested time with me today, and what I would like to offer you is a reduction of that fee for the first 3 months that we would work together, down to $1,000 a month. There is no minimum contract, and it's available till 12 o'clock tomorrow. All you need to do is notify me by email, and ignore the bit where it says the 2nd of December 2017. I obviously was having a complete brain fart when I wrote that, because that is not the date. It is actually going to be the 10th of February 2017. So if you are interested, as I say, there's no commitment. You just need to drop me a line and we will arrange a one-on-one consultation to see whether we're actually a good fit, because that's important as well. So on to the Q&A at this point. So really, if you have any questions, now is a great opportunity to fire those off. And I'm here and I will do my best to answer them. Okay, so I have a question that's come in here. With referrals, how do you get around clients who have a confidentiality clause, and while they want to give you the information they cannot, how do you make that client follow through for you? Oh, that's an interesting question on referrals. Where there's a confidentiality clause, normally it is very specific to a type of work that they're doing, or a specific client. Most of the confidentiality clauses that I've been involved with are in the sort of acquisition and disposal area. There are certainly within government clauses where they cannot disclose certain information. But what we're looking for here as much as possible is a personal recommendation. So the aim, it may not necessarily be somebody that they work with or within government, or even work within that business, but on a personal recommendation, on a personal basis, do they know anyone who maybe has a business that is potentially a good fit to work with you? Otherwise, if an employee is bound by a confidentiality clause, unfortunately it's a bit of a dead end. You have to respect that from them, and maybe start asking elsewhere for potential referrals. You may find that they will make, could be a good testimonial. They might even be able to offer to be a case study. So don't necessarily discard it just because they can't give you a referral. Think about other ways in which they might be able to help you if they love you that much. Okay. Another question's come in. Found your chart for the categories by classification. Interesting. Is it possible to reshare the categories? Absolutely it is. I will make the slides available as a PDF so that you will get access to them. I'm also recording this, so likewise you will be able to go back through this should you want to and find the appropriate piece, but you might find it easier and quicker to do that through the PDFs. Any other questions at the moment? Okay, so all very quiet at the moment. Great opportunity for me to grab a drink of water. Any other questions at this point? Okay, I mean, I quite understand there's a lot of information that has come through during the course of the workshop. There's a lot for you to think about. So I think probably at this point what I will do, so another question has come through. Okay, measuring on the high-low score out of 5. I actually chose out of 4 because it doesn't allow you to choose a 3 as middle ground, which is neutral. You have to choose something that is either positive or negative, and it stops to make you think a little bit harder. 1 out of 5, it's very easy to choose the average and say, well, it's a 3. But out of 4, 1 out of 4, 2 is positive, 3 is negative. There is no neutral there. So I hope that helps, because it's about decision making rather than fence sitting. Just me being contrarian and making you guys work harder. Okay, but thank you for that question. Again, the particular worksheet that the question was about, it does have at the top, it has a key for scoring as well and how that works. Okay. As I say, there's been a lot of information during the course of the workshop. Take, digest, think about it. I will get out a recording, a PDF of the slides, and a link to the worksheets which are on Google Sheets, so you'll be able to download them to your own Google account and use them to your heart's content. I would ask, however, just don't share them out. These are worksheets that I've developed for your benefit. So respecting that confidentiality would be fantastic. So lastly, at this point, as there are no further questions, if you are interested in finding out more about coaching and how potentially that could benefit you, drop me a line and you will be open to the first 3 months at the lower rate, and then at the end of the 3 months it kicks back up to the regular rate. But I'm very grateful for time you spent. We're now looking at sort of an hour and a quarter of your time you've invested with me. So thank you very much indeed. Any further comments, always welcome. If you've enjoyed this, I believe that there is a questionnaire that comes out at the end of this. And I'd love any good feedback or poor feedback, any comments at all. Anything that you feel that I can do better to improve on, or if there are particular topics that you would like covered in more depth, anything that we've talked about today that you would like to know more about, let me know, and I will add that to the list of upcoming workshops and webinars that I'll be doing during the course of this year. Well, thank you very much indeed. Have a very successful year, and I look forward to speaking, hopefully, with a number of you very shortly. Thanks very much.